this video I'll cover some of the basic features of a new script I threw together called vMeshProjector. And the intent of the script is to provide another tool in the arsenal for pulling low poly meshes from high poly ones. Typically the kind of thing you might get from ZBrush or scan data, that kind of thing, converting that or building a mesh that you can use in game and pull the detail from the high one into. For this video I'll be using this example of a high poly character sculpt, body sculpt. I'll select it and zoom in so you can get a sense of the mesh detail. It's not the most complex mesh, but it's definitely something you wouldn't want to pull directly into game. So it'll be a good working case for this video to cover the basic features. I'll fire the script up and immediately you're presented with this dialog. I'll just kind of work from top to bottom. In the topmost section, there's a section called target objects. And basically these are all the objects that you're targeting, you're projecting to. You can have more than one. In this case, there's only one, the body, but if you had other items, accessories, clothing or belt or hats and gloves and whatever else, shoes, it could all the subtools you might pull out of ZBrush, you could actually add them separately and reference them all at once in here. And you can add it by picking in the view like I just did, or you can add it by hitting add list, which pulls up a select by name dialog. Standard stuff. Or you could take and remove them just by selecting them or multi-selecting them in here and hitting remove, or hitting remove all to pull them all out. Now the next thing we need is under the projection object section, and what we need is an object to project. In this case I'm going to just kind of work on this lower leg here, and legs are basically cylindrical, so we'll take and we'll make a cylinder. So here's a cylinder. Take and open this up a little bit. And I'm going to start with the lower calf. Kind of want to get the cylinder positioned somewhat in place, just for a good starting point. So it's kind of surrounding the leg there and surrounding down here. Looks like I wasn't too accurate in my placement, but that's okay. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be precise. I'm just being a perfectionist, I guess. Anyways, so we've got this object, and that's what we want to use, but it's still saying we're not ready. Well, the reason is that it needs to be a editable poly. So we'll take and convert to editable poly. And it looks like the video capture is doing something weird with the quad menu, so just trust me, we just converted it to an editable poly, and it's confirmed over here by saying it's ready to go. I'm not going to talk about locked verts in this video, we'll cover that in another one, but now that brings us down to these two big buttons. There's auto and manual. These are your action buttons. Auto mode basically projects and updates the projection every time it detects a change on the mesh. Manual, pretty much what it means. Whenever you click it, it does a projection. So if I were to click it right now, it projected that mesh to the leg. And it's not using normals. It's doing, for every vert, what is the closest surface point that I'm near on my target object. Not nearest vert, but nearest surface. So it may be inside a face or whatever. It's not going vert to vert. It's going to the nearest surface. And that creates some really interesting results. And it's not always what you think. In this case, I wasn't expecting, for example, the cylinder to come this far forward on the foot. But you can correct all of that. That's not a big deal. In auto mode, it basically does what I said. Every time you make a change to the mesh, so if I were to select these verts and move them up, it'll reconform them. Likewise, if I select the ones in the bottom that I was a little concerned about and move them up, it'll conform them. Now we're still getting this kind of dip forward here, and that's not necessarily a problem. But you could, for example, come in here and grab these verts and just take and, well, I want to pull them up. And now, what if I want that edge loop to be flat? Well, I could come in here and I could, manually go in by hand and try to take this thing and take each vert and move it into place. But there's better ways of doing that. All of the tools that you have available in Max are available to you. So you could, for example, take that face and say make planar. So it made the face planar and reprojected. But now that we're looking at this, what if we really wanted it to be on the Z? Well, we could take and make that face planar on the Z. And that's decent, but that doesn't work for all of these edge loops. And furthermore, if you were to take and let's convert the selection to edge loop and ring it. If I were to use the Max's tools to flatten on the Z, it would take and give us this garbled mesh. Take all of those edges and flatten them all to the same Z point. Not really what we want. So I undo that, and I'm going to skip over offset here. You see that I have my own make planar buttons in here on the script itself. And what's useful about these is they'll actually work at each loop's level. So if I want to flatten on the Z, I can hit this one here, and it'll take and flatten them completely down along the Z. So pretty much what you're expecting to have happen. Let me get into really where some of the power of the script comes into play. I'm going to take and build this leg up into the thigh area. What I want to do, I don't need this cap. I really want to work at the edge level, so I'm going to get rid of that. And we're going to select this top border, and we're just going to take and extrude it up. Somewhere up in here is good. And you can see as I did that, it reprojected automatically. Let's take and grab all of these rings. Let's go to our connect tool, and let's crank the settings up. Doesn't really matter what. We'll just say 8 and say OK. And as I do that, you can see how it takes and conforms to our target mesh. Now about this point, you're probably thinking, that's kind of an ugly mesh. We've got really big edges here, we've got really tiny ones here, and it just kind of changes as we work our way around. Well, we can work on that. We can fix that. The next two tools help with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and select all of these loops. And the first button here, space loop verts, what it'll do is for each loop, it'll space the verts out on that loop. So we'll hit space loop verts. And now you can see that there's a much more even distribution if you look along each loop. Each of those edges are exactly the same size. Alright, so another problem you'll probably notice is that this edge is much larger than this one. Well, we can fix that too. If we hit space loops, it'll actually take whatever loops we have selected and space them out. I do want to point out though that the script works on whatever selected. It doesn't necessarily space across the entire object. It works on whatever is selected. So if we take and shrink this down and just say, well, we only want to space them out from here to here, and let's take and deselect these two bottom ones. If we want to space between here and here, that's fine. We just select that and hit space loops. And there we just reselected that, or respaced it. Let me give you something that's a little bit more extreme. I'm going to run a connect on here. Now last connect we had 8 connections set. Well, obviously we don't want it to be quite that dense, but maybe we want it to be tighter around the knee. So, we can come in here and grow that ring out. And maybe we'll take and have it space between here, here, and here. So now I've hit space loops, spaced evenly, right across there to there. And of course, if you just want to have uniform across the entire mesh, you can do that too. Okay, so, here we are looking at this. Another problem you're going to notice is that, well, this edge kind of twists over and works its way up here. Well, that has to do with the original projection we made where these edges were big, and when it respaced them out, it inherently had a twist in it. But you can fix that, and the way you might go about doing that, there's probably numerous ways, is to select that loop up at the top, and we'll take and grow these rings down a little bit, the ones that are definitely off. And then about here it starts to twist over, so we'll take and maybe go into a soft select mode, pull our fall off down, and we'll just go straight into rotate. So we'll take and start to twist this over. That's decent. Grow that out. I'll come and fix that middle section in just a second. So let's grab this Maybe we'll take and shrink the fall off down a little more. And again, every time I make a change, it automatically reprojects and updates. So, there we go. It's reprojecting, it's fixed that up a bit. Now you notice we're getting a little bunching over here. That's not that big a problem. Again, you can correct that. And I just want to reiterate is that the script works on whatever is selected, and whatever changes it's going to work on. So maybe we don't want to space across the entire loop. Maybe we just want to take and space it out between there and there. So I can select that and then space the loop verts. And there we've just evened out that little section instead of going across the entire thing. And that same thing is true with whatever is selected. So if I turn auto mode off and I grab a couple of verts and move them out, obviously nothing's happening right now. If I hit manual, it's going to project just what I had selected. It's not going to recalculate all of this stuff over here. And then as you work your way down, there's some relax tools in here. The relaxing, it does pretty much what you'd expect. All it is the built-in relax inside of Max. So, you can take an area, such as this, and maybe you wanted to relax that out a little bit. You could just take and hit your settings down here just like you would, and relax and relax and relax. And every time you relax, it'll take and reproject. So it's pretty straightforward stuff on that one, but it's nice to have it kind of handy with the other tools up here. I'll cover offset and locked verts in another video, but you can see already, hopefully, the usefulness of this script. I wasn't putting a whole lot of thought into what I was doing, but I was able to take and effectively build this really simple mesh off of that high poly one and conform to all of the silhouette and shapes of it in really no time. All right, that's it for this one.